All right, welcome to another Troubadour Channel reaction. My name is Kirk Barbera, and my band teacher in high school said that I was musically challenged. And I am on a journey to learn more about music, particularly contemporary music, and expand my repertoire, knowledge, experience of this art form. On my channel, I explore, teach, and explain, and hopefully try to open you up to all kinds of new forms of art, or I should say, new forms of art to you, perhaps. So if you're not as familiar with poetry, with literature, with epics, with short stories, with paintings and sculpture, go over to Troubadour Channel or check out my website, troubadour.studio, and you can explore timeless art there. And I hope you will do what I'm doing, which is expanding your knowledge and experience with the greatest works of art ever created by human beings. And right now, I also run something called the Literary Canon Club, where we read through, and I help motivate you. I help keep you on track with reading through the literary canon, the Western literary canon, from Homer to Ayn Rand. So we read a lot of literature. Right now, as of recording this, we're about to start reading Don Quixote. So if you'd like to join for Don Quixote, there is still time. Okay, so I'm going to be reacting to It's All Right, Ma, I'm Only Bleeding. And this is actually one from your comments. I do read through your comments. I'm trying my best to respond. I appreciate all the comments you guys are giving me. It does help me. And part of what I do, you'll see, is I'll react. This is a blind reaction. Pretty sure I've never heard this song, although I've been wrong occasionally in the past. But I try to just have a reaction, just listen to it to the best of my ability. And then afterwards, I will read it, and discuss it to the best of my ability. After doing a brief amount of, I'll re-listen to the song and try to get something out of it, a little bit more out of it myself, and maybe you'll enjoy that as well. But if you're here just for the reaction, you've probably already skipped all this anyway. Okay, so let's go ahead and listen to the song. And like I said, I will just react, and then we'll discuss afterwards. I might comment a little bit, but I try not to pause during it. I know people hate that. Okay, here we go. I just saw the movie A Complete Unknown, by the way, just like 2 days ago, and I liked it. It was a good.
Darkness at the break of noon, shadows even the silver spoon, the handmade blade, the child's balloon, eclipses both the sun and moon. To understand you know too soon, there's no sense in trying. As pointed threats they bluff with scorn, suicide remarks are torn from the fool's gold mouthpiece. The hollow horn plays wasted words, proves to warn that he not busy being born is busy dying.
If you're not busy living, you're busy dying. Shawshank Redemption. You get busy living or get busy dying.
Temptation's page flies out the door. You follow, find yourself at war. Watch waterfalls of pity roar. You feel the moan, but unlike before, you discover that you just be one more person crying. So don't fear if you hear a foreign sound to your ear. It's all right, Ma, I'm only sighing. As some won victory, some downfall, private reasons, great or small, can be seen in the eyes of those that call to make all that should be killed to crawl, while others say don't hate nothing at all except hatred.
Yeah, first reaction to this one in particular.
Disillusioned words like bullets bark as human gods aim for their mark. Make everything from toy guns that spark to flesh-colored Christs that glow in the dark. It's easy to see without looking too far that not much is really sacred.
This really feels a lot more like slam poetry I've heard, almost. Although this still has a musical element. But just the cadence of it.
While preachers preach of evil fates, teachers teach that knowledge waits can lead to $100 plates. Goodness hides behind its gates, but even the President of the United States sometimes must have to stand naked.
Even the President of the United States must sometimes stand naked. Like, open to the truth?
The rules of the road have been lodged. It's only people's games that you got to dodge. And it's alright, Ma, I can make it.
People's games you have to dodge. The deceit of others. I mean, I'm catching little things, but it is a lot.
Advertising signs that con you into thinking you're the one that can do what's never been done, that can win what's never been won. Meantime, life outside goes on all around you.
Okay, I just have to say, since we're doing Don Quixote, that is Don Quixote right there. That is Cervantes.
You lose yourself, you reappear, you suddenly find you got nothing to fear. Alone you stand with nobody near, when a trembling distant voice unclear startles your sleeping ears to hear that somebody thinks they really found you.
Huh. I'm looking forward to going through this one.
A question in your eyes is lit, yet you know there is no answer fit to satisfy and show you not to quit, to keep it in your mind and not forget that it is not he or she or them or it that you belong to. Though the masters make the rules for the wise men and the fools, I got nothing more to live up to.
I've got nothing more to live up to.
For them that must bow down to authority that they do not respect in any degree, who despise their jobs, their destiny, speak jealously of them that are free, cultivate what they do to be, nothing more than something they invest in. While some on principles baptized to strict party platform ties, social clubs and drag disguise, outsiders they can freely criticize, till nothing's helped you to idolize and say God bless him. While one who sings with his tongue on fire gargles in the rat race choir, bent out of shape from society's pliers, cares not to come up any higher, but rather get you down in the hole that he's in.
I'm getting little snippets of understanding.
But I mean no harm, nor put fault on anyone living in a vault. But it's alright, Ma, if I can't please him. Old lady judges watch people in pairs, limited in sex they dare to tell fake morals, insult and stare, while money doesn't talk, it swears. Obscenity, who really cares? Propaganda, all is phony. Well, them that defend what they cannot see with killer's pride, security, it blows their minds most bitterly. For them that think death's honesty won't fall upon them naturally, life sometimes must get lonely. My eyes collide head-on with stuffed graveyards, false goals I scuff at, pettiness which plays so rough. Walk upside down inside handcuffs, kick my legs to crash it off, say, all right, I've had enough, what else can you show me? And if my thought dreams could be seen, they'd probably put my head in a guillotine. But it's alright, Ma, It's life and life only.
Whew, okay. Oh, sorry, you don't get it twice. 1 second. Okay, so I went through and listened to the song again, and now I'm going to read and kind of give you my thoughts, or at least to the best of my ability, of this, these song lyrics. And I was trying to find a quote somebody shared with me in the comments, supposedly by Dylan. Something like a poem is, stands on its own, but a song walks away, or something like that. And I'm getting it wrong. And there's another one that I saw, something about like a poem is like a naked person while a song walks on its own. And I find that idea of a poem stands on its own is accurate, in the sense that a poem is standing purely on the sound and the meaning of the words. I say this in almost every one of my videos. Whereas the music in a lyric relies heavily on the intonation of the particular singer, as well as the accompanying music, whether that, in this case, harmonica and guitar, but also the singing. Right? When you read a poem, even if you're a professional reader 100, 200 years ago, or you're a teacher, you might read it well and you might give a little bit of intonation, but mostly you want to rely on the actual intonations of the words without giving too much of your own interpretation into it. Although there's arguments on how much interpretation you should do. Whereas a song, I think, is all interpretation. And a good example of this is Trent Reznor's Hurt. So if you've seen, Johnny Cash has a great song, Hurt, which is a cover of Trent Reznor, his song Hurt. And if you listen to both of those are completely different interpretations of the same lyrics. And there was an interview where Trent Reznor said, I didn't even know that this song was about an old man at the end of his, until I heard Johnny Cash do it. And Trent had to basically say, this actually became Johnny Cash's song, and it is his song in a sense. It was a better, more robust interpretation of the lyrics that he'd written. And I think he appreciated that. And that's an interesting thing about art, and particularly this form of art, is the what makes a final product in this version of art. In doing these reactions, I constantly get you guys in the comments telling me, oh, that's not the right version. Kirk, you're listening to the wrong version. And it's like, but they're both Dylan, so I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean it's the wrong version? And you think it's, the best version for you, or there's something. But it's an interesting question of, well, what's the right version? I mean, if Bob Dylan comes up, let's say at the end of his life right now, he does a whole series of songs that are, of the songs he did in the past. Like he does 40 songs, his favorite songs of the past, redoing them in kind of new interpretations. But they're the same lyrics. He just, remixes it a bit. And he says, this is the official version. Does that mean that those are the official versions now? This actually was an interesting question. And it is in a lot of cases of final authorship of these works of art. And, a good example of this is William Wordsworth's The Prelude, which William Wordsworth, this is a long epic poem that he did, an autobiographical poem he did starting in the late 1700s, but it was never fully published really until 1850. And there's two versions. So the version I read is a book that has two versions, because he did publish part of it at the beginning. But you could see there's like an 1805 version and then an 1850 version, because he was tinkering with it his whole life. But he never published it, so it was published posthumously. So the question is the tinkering he did throughout the whole life the final version, and that's the correct way that he wanted and that it is the proper authorship, or is it the 1803 or 5 version that he did? And I find this issue of interpretation to be really interesting. I don't know if you find it interesting, but I think it's interesting. And, in reading and learning about Dylan, I think that's part of what he's kind of going for. And he does these all the time. And so like I often struggle in this in terms of trying to get the, what is he really trying to say? And I've read a couple things about it that help me try to understand what he's trying to get across, and wrap my head around potential meanings, which I do think is essential for all art. Even if it's enigmatic, there still needs to be something being communicated for it, to me, to have any real value. Other than real artistic value. So there's value in wall art and, white noise to kind of calm you down or something. There's all kinds of values in that. But to have real artistic value, I think there does need to be something being communicated, and we can look at that. Okay, so let me just read this to the best of my abilities. It's a little, I did read it again on my own, and I saw some things, and I was reading a little bit about it on the internet, which is dangerous to get interpretations that way. So this is going to be my best interpretation. If I have time afterwards, after my reading, maybe I'll do a little more discussion about understanding like what is the value of someone like me, critics and analysts and discussers of this. Like, is there any value in what I'm doing? In the sense of, it's not like I'm coming to a final interpretation. And let me just say this, some of the analysis that I read, like there's one in particular that I keep seeing a lot of, something de Graaf. And if you just look up, "All right, Ma, I'm only bleeding" lyrics meaning, you'll see this person, and he comes up in a couple of interpretations. And I've read some of his analysis, and I think there's some interesting values, but it brings up this whole thing about the role of the critic and that type of person. And because one of the things that I notice is of a lot of critics, and this guy in particular, is the desire to utilize these song lyrics and in this art to convey a message they want to convey, and to using kind of like, let me look at this, let me look at that, let me get a clip from this 60 Minutes interview, let me say, oh, this sounds like a reference to that. Now I do that all the time, so I'm not saying boo necessarily, but I think it's an interesting question of, well, what's the purpose of that? Is that valuable? Are you bringing something out of it? And I'll tell you that my goal in this, and whenever I do an interpretation or an analysis, is that I want to help on two things. I want to help enlighten and enliven my own life, me. I want to get more out of it. That's what you're seeing, is me trying to juice something out of it so that I can walk away with a better artistic experience, which I think is a valuable thing as a consumer. And then I hope that in you seeing it, that you get some models of how you can do that as well. And that's what I do with all art. I think art is the most personal thing in the world, next to love and sex. And so I think it's an important aspect of the way that we approach art. And, unfortunately, because of our education system, we don't have it very well done today. Okay. I've talked way too much. Thank you for those of you who stuck around. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to read this and get a little bit out of it. I don't want to spend all day because this is a little bit of a longer one. Okay, so he starts off, it's called "It's All Right, Mom, Only Bleeding," and he starts singing "Darkness at the break of noon, shadows even the silver spoon." So immediately we're in this world where we're getting an eclipse, some kind of, whether this is biblical, whether this is, apocalyptic, but there's darkness at the break of noon. That's when you don't normally get darkness, right? So there's darkness at the break of noon, shadows even the silver spoon. So this darkness that's coming over us, I see as shadowing, putting shadows over all of us, including people who are born with a silver spoon in their mouth. That's what I'm taking in. The handmade blade, the child's balloon, eclipses, there's that eclipse again, both the sun and the moon. So the handmade blade, I don't know what that's referencing. The child's balloon, these might be specific references that I don't know. That's one of the challenges with Dylan sometimes. Eclipses both the sun and moon, to understand To understand, you know too soon. There is no sense in trying. To understand, there's no sense in trying. It's kind of what I'm hearing. It's like, don't even try to. And I've heard that from a lot of Dylan stuff. He's like, don't try so hard or whatever. And, that's against my nature. I definitely want to understand a little bit about what's happening. But the handmade blade, so I'm just getting something about this darkness, handmade blade, there's some kind of war symbol or fighting. Something bad is on the horizon. And that's what he's trying to say. Pointed threats. Here's the next stanza. Pointed threats, they bluff with scorn. Suicide remarks are torn. I'm seeing like terrorism, violence, riots. I think this is in the 60s or so. 65. So when is Birmingham? Birmingham, the bombing in Birmingham, is that 63? I think it might be around this time. But there's a lot of riots going on, as we know, of course. You don't have to be a historian to know all the dates to know that. From the fool's gold mouthpiece, the hollow horn. Fool's gold mouthpiece, the hollow horn. That's got to be some mythic reference, right? Hollow horn. I don't know which one. Plays wasted words. Proves to warn that he not busy being born is busy dying. And I think Shawshank Redemption has a great quote: "Get busy living or get busy dying." It's a pretty good quote. I don't know if it was inspired by this or whatever, but the Shawshank Redemption obviously came out in the 90s. So, although I don't know, I think it's based on a book. I don't know when that came out. Then that he not busy being born is busy dying. So again, this is how I kind of approach it, as I'm making associations now, especially with Dylan. So other artists, if you see me go through other works, I'm doing a series on William Blake, Songs of Innocence and Experience. I think there's a lot more that's actually in it, and there's a kind of totality of a unity that you could see something much clearer. In my interpretation of Dylan, it's way more foggy and disunified. That's just my view so far. That doesn't mean there's nothing there. It just means that it's more disunified. So it's like, it seems like it's flashbacks almost, right? It's just a series of images flashed on a screen, and it's kind of giving you an overall mosaic of views and ideas and experiences. And there's maybe some kind of unifying thing he's trying to say, but there's not like a real direct sequential unifying thing that's often there. And it's fine to tell me where I'm wrong or missing something. But that I always get that image whenever I'm experiencing Dylan. Okay, Temptation's page flies out the door. You follow, find yourself at war. So we have another switch here. Watch waterfalls of pity. Switch in, I think, narrator, right? Pointed threats. Who's talking here? I guess it's the same, just objective observer. I think these are just observations of Dylan. Temptation's page flies out the door. Okay, so the things tempting you in life. You follow, find yourself at war. So you're tempted into something and you find yourself at war. Watch waterfalls at pity roar. You feel to moan, but unlike before, you discover that you'd just be one more person crying. So some kind of like lament about the uselessness of your protest, maybe. I don't know. It just came to me. I don't know if that's accurate. So don't fear if you hear a foreign sound to your ear. It's all right, Mom. Only sighing. Okay. So don't fear if you hear. So I wonder if this has to do a little bit with xenophobia. We're dealing with this a little bit today. Don't fear if you hear a foreign sound to your ear, like foreign words, foreign people to your ear. Foreign music, foreign art, foreign movies. Don't worry about it. I'm only sighing. Or maybe it's, I don't know about that actually. Maybe what he's saying is something like, don't worry if I've changed. If I sound different to you, I'm just complaining, right? I know this in Dylan's life comes a little bit after the times are changing, and he was resisting being the voice of this counter-revolution, which people said he was, and I know he didn't like to be labeled. As some warn victory, some downfall, private reasons, great or small, can be seen in the eyes of those that call to make all that should be killed to crawl, while others say they don't hate nothing at all except hatred. Yeah, I don't get that one. As some warn victory. So some downfall, private reasons, great or small. So ups and downs of life, of America. I mean, there does seem to be something where it's a commentary on America. While others say don't hate nothing at all except hatred, to make all that should be killed to crawl. Can be seen in the eyes of those that call. So we have this up and down. Can be seen in the eyes of those that call to make all those things kill to crawl. I don't know. Tell me in the comments what you think that means. I mean, don't hate nothing at all except hatred is pretty clear. People say that you should only hate people who hate. Okay. That's fine. I don't agree with that. I think there's people who, I guess it depends on how you would think about hatred. So yeah, sure. A lot of people who do bad things, steal, murder, rape, are haters, and you should hate those people. So, okay, I can do that. So if you want to think about like someone who tries to come to this country for love of the country, you shouldn't hate that person. Right. And I think sometimes some people do hate those people. Obviously immigration's a little bit on my mind at the moment. Disillusioned words like bullets bark as human gods aim for their mark. Make everything from toy guns that spark to flesh-colored Christs that glow in the dark. So, okay, this is consumerism. It's easy to see without looking too far that not much is really sacred. I mean, that's like the fall of Christianity, of religion, of religiosity, of the feeling of religiousness that we get, which I actually agree with. As an atheist, I actually agree that there is a collapse of the kind of emotional divine reverence. I just don't think, you could see some of my other videos I've talked about this, but I don't believe there's a necessity or that you should have that feeling for something that is not existing in the world. You can have in the universe, in the known actual universe, you can actually have a secular religious experience. And I actually do believe that. I think actually they all are secular because there is no such thing as anything outside of the universe. It's just a fairy tale that we have invented. But I think here he's talking about, these flesh-colored Christ that glow in the dark. These, these little baubles you buy of Christ. I read a story a long time ago about the smiling Buddha, and I'm trying to remember this. I read this so many years ago. I'm trying to remember what happened, but basically the reason the Buddha looks the way he does, where he's like smiling and he's fat, because if you like it comes from the way that he was brought, the stories he was brought to through different cultures, and how he was an amalgamation of different cultures. And part of what happened was he, because I think the Buddha is supposed to be about restraint, right? And then here's like a fat Buddha. Like, what kind of Buddha is fat? Like, that doesn't make any sense, because you're supposed to have control and restraint over yourself. But as the idea of the Buddha comes through cultures in China and places like that, I can't remember exactly where, he comes basically to combine with other religious figures, and then he's sold, in like store shops and, even in hundreds of years ago or whatever, to kind of a wider audience, and it became a little bit more palatable. And that helped to spread the actual religion and the viewpoints of the Buddha in a sense too. And I think that, could be the flip side of what he's saying here. While preachers preach of evil fates, teachers teach that knowledge waits. Yeah, I did a little bit of the analysis of the meter and rhyme, and it's like, it's like fates, waits, plates, gates, United States, naked, right? So it's like A, B. And I don't know if he does that every time. I can't remember. Con one, done one. Yeah, I think he does do it most of the times. So he's breaking it. He's trying to find some kind of cadence. And there was a rhythm to if you listen to the song, obviously there's a rhythm to how he sung that. It was interesting. So while preachers preach of evil fates, so they're preaching about the evil fate we all have. We're all, maybe born sinners. Teachers teach that knowledge waits, so we don't get knowledge until later. That's what wisdom is, maybe. Can lead to $100 plates. Is that like how much teachers and preachers make? $100 plates? I don't know. Goodness hides behind its gates, but even the President of the United States sometimes must have to stand naked. Now, this is before Watergate. So, is this some kind of reference to JFK's assassination? He's got to stand naked before his God at the gates, maybe? And through the rules, and though the rules of the road have been lodged, it's only people's games that you got to dodge. So we have rules of the road. There's rules of how you should live. But you got to, then there's games that you have to get out of. This seems to be like a commentary and criticism of the culture that they're living in and taboos and things like that. And, and he's telling us, Ma, I can make it. It's all right, Ma, I can make it. Advertising signs they con you into thinking you're the one that can do whatever's never been done, that can win what's never been won. Meantime, life outside goes on all around you. Okay, so I said in the reading, that to me felt a lot like a Don Quixote, a Cervantes phrase. And what I mean by that is, so the idea of having these, so Don Quixote is a character who gets it in his head to go out and become a knight errant and live a chivalrous life because he read these chivalric stories, these grand romances that, El Cid and the Amadis de Gaul, Yvain, the knight, and Arthur and all these people, and he wanted to be like them. So he goes out and he tries to emulate them, thinking that you're the one, that he's the one to do it. Because he heard the signs and this, and advertising kind of has that message: buy this beer and you'll get this beautiful woman. Like, buy this, you'll get this beautiful life. Everything will be honky dory once you have a Lexus, right? Once you have this car, your life's going to be set, and that can win. That's never been won. Meantime, life, and this is a message you get in Don Quixote is like he does this, and then life goes on separately from him in a sense, and there's almost a discontinuity between what he was told and what he believed and the reality. So I saw that a little bit. And I've seen a lot of like the ironic viewpoint of Dylan is similar to Cervantes. You lose yourself, at least from what I'm gathering. Okay, let's keep going. You lose yourself, you reappear, you suddenly find you got nothing to fear. Alone you stand with nobody near, when a trembling distant voice unclear startles your sleeping ears to hear that somebody thinks they really found you. This seems like a personal thing to him. I mean, I guess it's possible to a lot of people, but I've heard him say this kind of thing before where, he loses himself, about identity. So somebody, you find you've reached a pinnacle, but you're standing alone, nobody's near you. And then somebody in some trembling, distant voice, which is an unclear voice, they're not really certain, like me maybe, startles your sleeping ears to hear that somebody thinks they really found you. So it's like Kirk found Dylan finally, right? And he's like, no, you don't get it. Right? Like that's kind of what he's saying to Kirk, 50 years later. A question in your nerves is lit, yet there is no answer fit to satisfy. Ensure you not to quit, to keep it in your mind and not forget that it is not he or she or them or it that you belong to. A question in your nerves is lit. So when this happens to you, it just happened. I think when someone thinks they found you, it enlightens something in your nerves. I think this is Dylan speaking in particular. Yet there is no answer fit to satisfy. So nothing he says to me will make me satisfied. Ensure you not to quit, to keep it in your mind and not forget that it is not he or she or them or it that you belong to. So you belong to yourself, I think. He doesn't belong to me. He doesn't belong to you. He belongs to Dylan, not to a movement, not to the modern movement, not to someone in 2024, not to the interpreter I was telling you about earlier. Although the masters make the rules for the wise men and the fools, I got nothing, ma, to live up to. That seems pretty cynical. There's no role models. There's no heroes. And I think there may be some truth to that in today's day and age, and 65, and I think this is kind of true in 2025, there's not too many clear heroes anymore. We're not very good at creating models for us to live by, which I think is what a great hero is. For them that must obey authority that they do not respect in any degree, who despise their jobs, their destinies, speak jealously of them that are free, cultivate their flowers to be nothing more than something they invest in. Again, this sounds like Dylan talking about Dylan. So like there's people like Kirk, like you listening to this, who you probably do have authorities in your life. You have a boss, you have maybe a family, someone who tells you what to do, and you despise your job maybe, and you despise your destiny, and then therefore those people are particularly inclined to speak jealously of someone like Dylan, who's able to just do and say what he wants, and who cultivates his flowers nothing more than something they invest in, which his flowers are what we invest in with him. And I think as an artist, there's some truth to that for sure from his perspective. While some on principles baptized to strict party platform ties, social clubs in drag disguise. Okay. Outsiders, they can freely criticize, tell nothing except who to idolize, and then say, God bless him. Okay, so I think there's something about the principles we follow and the realities of how we're following them. While one who sings with his tongue on fire gargles in the rat race choir, bent out of shape from society's pliers, so society's plying you into shape, cares not to come up any higher, but rather get you down in the hole that he's in, someone dragging you down. But I mean no harm, nor put fault on anyone that lives in a vault. So if you stand apart from everybody, I don't want to blame you. It's wrong if I can't please him. Old lady judges watch people in pairs, limited in sex, taboos against sex, I think. Being judged by old ladies, which I think is true. Like I think a lot of old ladies are the ones who are, there's a lot of old ladies conservatives who are anti-abortion, where the younger female conservatives are not. So it's like, that's kind of problematic, where it's like the people who can't really give birth anymore and they don't have to worry about this, they're the ones who are pro or anti-abortion. To push fake morals, insult, and stare. While money doesn't talk, it swears. Obscenity, who really cares? The propaganda, all is phony. While them that defend what they cannot see with the killer's pride security, it blows the minds most bitterly for them that think death's honesty won't fall upon them naturally. Life sometimes gets lonely. Okay, I'm trying to wrap this up. My eyes collide head-on with stuffed graveyards, false gods. I scuff at pettiness, which plays so rough, walk upside down inside the handcuffs, kick my legs to crash it off, say, okay, I have had enough. What else can you show me? My eyes collide head-on with stuffed graveyards, false gods. Okay, so he's all the false idols in this new counterculture world. He scuffs at pettiness. So I think he's criticizing a little bit of the new counterculture. Okay, here's the last stanza. And if my thought dreams could be seen, they'd probably put my head in a guillotine, whatever. But it's all right, ma. It's life and life only. So does he not actually say it's all right, ma? I'm only bleeding? Interesting. Well, I thought that was really interesting. I can't say that it touched me that much in an artistic sense, because it was a little too random sometimes. But I don't know. I'm gonna hear it some more. I want to sit with it. Give me some of your thoughts about it. There's often a time when I go through a poem and there's an intellectual exercise and something will hit me and it becomes profound in an intellectual way afterwards. And I think that's often one of the pleasures of poems, one of the pleasures. And I kind of got that here. There's some things that I was like, okay, I get what he's, but it does seem like it's, I always think of the model as like the Forrest Gump of music, in the sense that Forrest Gump is this character. He kind of goes, as the narrator, he's kind of going around randomly and just kind of observing, sometimes not super astutely, sometimes very astutely, making comments, focus type comments on the world around him. And that's kind of how please don't take offense to that. I know you love Dylan, and I'm starting to really like him a lot too. I just have to say, with this one, it wasn't like the most amazing listening experience that I've ever had. So that was part of it. But I enjoyed doing this. So I hope you enjoyed. For those of you who made it through 40 minutes, wow, this took a lot longer to discuss. So thank you very much for joining me on this journey, and I hope to see you next time.